What happens when you try to read critical theory when you're high? Okay. Postscript on the Societies of Control by Gilles Deleuze. It's French. 1. Historical. Foucault located the disciplinary societies in the 18th and 19th centuries. They reach their height at the outset of the 20th. They initiate the organization of vast spaces of enclosure. The individual never ceases passing from one enclosed environment to another, each having its own laws. First the family, then the school, then the barracks, then the factory. Ugh. From time to time the hospital, possibly the prison. Abolish prisons. The preeminent instance of the enclosed environment. It's the prison that serves as the analogical model. Abolish prisons and also other structures. At the sight of some laborers, the heroine of Rossellini's Europa 51 could exclaim, "I thought I was seeing convicts." That's so true. Work is garbage. Labor under capitalism is garbage, coercive, and exploitative. And I do not consent to it, which is why I'm unemployed. I literally don't want to do any work. I just want to sit around and get high. I dropped what I was reading. Foucault has brilliantly analyzed the ideal project of these environments of enclosure, particularly visible within the factory, to concentrate, to distribute in space, to order in time, to compose a productive force within the dimension of space-time. Space-time? We're talking about fucking... Oh my god, okay. To compose a productive force within the dimensions of space-time. Oh. Not fabric of the universe space-time. I mean, it is. Because everything is. But it's not what this is talking about. But in their turn, the disciplines underwent a crisis to the benefit of new forces that were gradually instituted and which accelerated after World War II. A disciplinary society was what we already no longer were. That seems to me a Deleuzian turn of phrase. Oh, I really like playful theory. Playful rhetoric. Do you think I'm in focus? We are in a generalized crisis in relation to all the environments of enclosure: prison, hospital, factory, school, family. But everyone knows that these institutions are finished. It's only a matter of administering their last rites and keeping people employed until the installation of the new forces knocking at the door. These are the societies of control which are in the process of replacing the disciplinary societies. There is no need here to invoke the extraordinary pharmaceutical productions, the molecular engineering, the genetic manipulations. Talk about the X-Men. Holy shit. I should be watching X-Men right now. DisneyPlus.com.
Previously on X-Men.
Oh my god.
I don't want to live my whole life without knowing what it's like to touch another human being.
In the mood.
What a bop. A real banger. It slaps. Oh, it's so good. Oh, Jubilee. So much happens in this opening. I like that Xavier is also rushing into battle in that last shot, and he's just gonna fucking like joust with Magneto. There is no need to ask which is the toughest or most tolerable regime. There is no need to fear or hope, but only to look for new weapons. I want nunchucks. A laser whip. It makes a sound instead of a... It's like a... 2. Logic. The different I moved the light because it was hurting my eyes. Logic. The different internments or spaces of enclosure through which the individual passes are independent variables. Each time one is supposed to start from zero, and although a common language for all these places exists, it is analogical. On the other hand, the different control mechanisms are inseparable variations, forming a system of variable geometry, the language of which is numerical, which doesn't necessarily mean binary. If the most idiotic television game shows are so successful, it's because they express the corporate situation with great precision. I like Jeopardy. I like Jeopardy. That first paragraph kind of lost me, but I guess we're looking at disciplinary versus control, right? Analogical, numerical, molds versus modulation. I'm not following this one anymore. Let's forge ahead.
So going over it sober, it actually makes a lot of sense what Deleuze is saying here. He's basically just saying that in disciplinary societies, there were certain models that you moved through over the course of your life, and all are related by the analogous logic of the prison. In societies of control, however, those models don't necessarily exist, or at least they're not as clean as they were in disciplinary societies. So for instance, in a disciplinary society, if you're working in a factory, it's very easy to see who's exploiting you. It's the boss, it's the factory owner. But in a society of control where you're working at a corporation and you're reporting to 4 different people for different reasons, it's much more difficult to see who's exploiting you because probably all the people you're reporting to are also being exploited.
The disciplinary societies have 2 poles: the signature that designates the individual, and the number or administrative numeration that indicates his or her position within a mass. We no longer find ourselves dealing with a mass-individual pair. Individuals have become dividuals, and masses, samples, data, markets, or banks. Control is short-term and of rapid rates of turnover, and also continuous and without limit, while discipline was of long duration, infinite, and discontinuous. Man is no longer man enclosed, but man in debt. It is true that capitalism has retained as a constant the extreme poverty of 3/4 of humanity, too poor for debt, too numerous for confinement. 3. Program. Felix Guattari has imagined a city where one would be able to leave one's apartment, one's street, one's neighborhood, thanks to one's individual electronic card that raises a given barrier. But the card could just as easily be rejected on a given day or between certain hours. What counts is not the barrier, but the computer that tracks each person's position. Shit, that's a very cogent point. It reminds me of when DoorDash glitches out and their GPS doesn't work, you cannot mark yourself as arrived and therefore cannot finish the delivery even if you are physically able to hand the delivery off. The exchange of money only happens if the computer thinks that it should. That's grim. Gig economy jobs. Everything's horrible, everything sucks. Oh God! That's my heart song right now. It may be that older methods borrowed from the former societies of sovereignty will return to the fore, but with the necessary modifications. Patreon. What I mean is, Patreon is a patronage system. Well, I'm gonna just explain what it is, I guess. We've done away with the sovereign structures of patronage, nobility, blah, 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 and we've replaced it with a, quote, democratic, unquote, form of the same thing. But either way, it's a instrumentalization of art, turning art and creativity into a source of income. So I would say that is an older method borrowed from society of sovereignty, moving into our current moment, a society of control. What counts is that we are at the beginning of something. In the prison system, the attempt to find penalties of substitution, at least for petty crimes, and the use of electronic collars that force the convicted person to stay at home during certain hours. For the hospital system, the new medicine without doctor or patient that singles out potential sick people and subjects at risk, which in no way attests to individuation, as they say, but substitutes for the individual or numerical body the code of a dividual material to be controlled. I get that. You can't donate, blood if you're gay. You're disallowing it based on a presumption of illness, based on an identity category. The individual there is this person, an individual being divided into each of the components. So the component that is MSM, that chunk is the individual part of this person that is being used to say, you can't give blood, you're sick. And just to be like clear, I think that's wrong. It's bad. Don't do it. These are very small examples, but ones that will allow for better understanding of what is meant by the crisis of the institutions, which is to say, the progressive and dispersed installation of a new system of domination. One of the most important questions will concern the ineptitude of the unions. Tied to the whole of their history of struggle against the disciplines or within the spaces of enclosure, will they be able to adapt themselves, or will they give way to new forms of resistance against the societies of control? Can we already grasp the rough outlines of these coming forms capable of threatening the joys of marketing? Many young people strangely boast of being motivated. They request apprenticeships and permanent training. It's up to them to discover what they're being made to serve, just as their elders discovered, not without difficulty, the telos of their disciplines. The coils of a serpent are even more complex. My card ran out of battery. That is not true. My card ran out of memory. The coils of a serpent are even more complex than the burrows of a molehill. I do like this. It's up to them to discover what they're being made to serve, just as their elders discovered, not without difficulty, the telos of their disciplines. I think we're figuring that out. I think there's enough of like a kind of grassroots leftist movement. At least, maybe I'm overstating it because I'm just a always online leftist person. I think people are figuring it out. And I think this generation's doing okay.
Oh God!
I literally don't want to do any work. Everything's horrible, everything sucks. Many young people strangely boast of being motivated. I see a lot of that. A lot of gig workers will be super motivated about like having hustle and like working and, you know, getting what's yours. But there's also a huge skepticism of the corporation that anyone's working for. I guess I can only speak to DoorDash because that's what I do. But everyone will be like, you know, really proud when someone like works really hard and makes a ton of money and posts it on like the subreddit or whatever. But then the whole underlying logic of the strategies that DoorDashers use to make money is this company that we're working for is trying to fuck us over and we are fucking them back. Not even fucking them back. It's like we're taking control in the ways that we can of this inherently broken system. So it's like, while I see them boasting of being motivated and maybe not understanding the exact mechanics of how they're being taken advantage of and of how our labor is being exploited, I do think that people understand that labor is being exploited, and I think that that's the more important thing to understand. But, I mean, as he said, right, there's no need to fear or hope, but only to look for new weapons. Earlier I said nunchucks. But now I think it's going to be getting high, playing with the makeup. Nah. Okay, I forgot to film this earlier, and I feel like it might be a little bit darker, and I might be a little bit less high. But basically, like, final thoughts. I think it's very interesting. I think it's a very good gesture towards some of the gaps that exist in still thinking about the world in terms of disciplinary societies. I definitely think that disciplinary societies no longer fully describe things that are happening. And yeah, I think this is a good gesture towards how we can think about how to explain the organizations of power that we are currently having to deal with. Just as their elders discovered not without difficulty the telos of their disciplines. And I do think it's difficult work, and I think that this is helpful in beginning it, in thinking about kind of the grand structures of society. In the present moment, what shapes our lives as much as the institutions of family, barracks, factory, prison worked? What is controlling our lives to that degree now? Easy, kind of facile answers are things like social media, which seems trite. You're willfully, joyfully, and sometimes coercively participating in it, and all of the, like, so much more information is gathered on you than could ever be found in a disciplinary society. as Deleuze points out, the disciplinary societies assign you a number, whereas societies of control don't have to worry about that. They don't have to worry about a unit within a mass. They could just have to worry about data points that constitute the equivalent of a person. And it's all data points that we are willfully saying, hey, I'm signing up for Facebook. Here's all the information you can have about me. Here are the data points you can have with which you can create models of people to determine reality. Now I feel like I'm high. I don't love it. I don't love the society that we live in. But I do love Instagram. And I love the attention I get. I'm so vain, and that's gonna be my downfall. It's gonna be everyone's downfall. My vanity. I have like Satan tier vanity, and I will cause the fall of man.